Did you know the Titanic's band played until the very end? These musicians played to calm the passengers, even as the ship was sinking. Not a single one of them survived. Imagine the chaos and fear during those moments. Yet, they played on, giving courage to those around them. They chose selflessness over survival. Maybe you've heard the legend, but isn't it time to remember their names? Comment below with your thoughts on their bravery.
Ever wondered what if the Titanic never sank, creating a ripple effect in history? Imagine a world where the unsinkable ship defied fate and sailed on, changing the course of maritime safety forever. But how would this impact World War I, since the Titanic's disaster influenced shipbuilding regulations and safety policies? One fascinating fact is that the Titanic's sister ships, Olympic and Britannic, might have a different fate in this altered timeline. Another intriguing detail is how passenger lists, crew members, and even famous survivors like Molly Brown would have different life stories. Picture a world where the Titanic's legacy goes beyond tragedy into a realm of what-if possibilities and untold stories.
Titanic never sank. You wouldn't believe me, would you? But listen to this. The owner of the boat, J.P. Morgan, actually had two boats. He had the Titanic and he had the Olympic. And the Olympic was a little bit older and a little bit more run down, and it was also in some accidents. So the theory is that J.P. Morgan sank the boat on purpose because he knew he would get a lot of money. He did it for the insurance money. But why sink the newly built Titanic when you could scratch off the paint, swap the names, and sink the Olympic? Instead, he just painted the word Titanic over the Olympic. It gets worse. Guess who was on that boat? All of J.P. Morgan's business competitors, and not one of them made it out. Oh my God, but guess who wasn't on the boat? J.P. Morgan. He canceled minutes before it left because he knew it was going to sink. And there was a guy named James Fenton who survived and worked on the boat, and on his deathbed, his last words were, "The Titanic never sank."
And am I speaking with Thomas?
Hello, this is Thomas.
Did you know the Titanic's sinking was predicted 14 years before it even set sail? In 1898, a writer named Morgan Robertson published a novel called The Wreck of the Titan. It told the story of an unsinkable ship that hit an iceberg in the North Atlantic and sank. Sound familiar? That's because 14 years later, the Titanic, a ship also labeled unsinkable, met the exact same fate. But here's where it gets even weirder. The details in Robertson's book are almost identical to the Titanic's disaster. The Titan, same size as the Titanic. Both carried too few lifeboats. Both struck an iceberg in April. Some say Morgan Robertson had a psychic vision. Others believe the Titanic was doomed by destiny. But what if the story of the Titan was never fiction to begin with?
The Titanic never sank. In reality, the ship's owner, J.P. Morgan, owned two vessels, the Titanic and the Olympic. The Olympic was older than the Titanic and was in very poor condition. Supposedly, J.P. Morgan intentionally planned to sink the Olympic because he knew he could collect a large sum of insurance money. He then switched the names of the Titanic and the Olympic to make it appear that the Olympic had sunk, while actually claiming it was the Titanic and cashing in on the insurance. J.P. Morgan's competitors were on board the ship and none of them survived. However, J.P. Morgan himself was not aboard the ship as he canceled his reservation just minutes before departure. There was a man named James Fenton who had worked on the construction of the ship and survived the sinking. On his deathbed, his final words were that the Titanic had never truly sunk, but it was actually the Olympic. He had known the secret for a long time, but had been threatened that something terrible would happen to him if he revealed the truth to the public. Therefore, he decided to disclose the truth just before his death.